Welcome to the city, Mastermind City. Hi, I'm Faye Chappell.
And I'm Stacey Maynard. Join us for a vibrant, inspiring, and uplifting master talk as we focus on how you can make a lasting impact on a global scale. Because the truth is, we're here because we want you to win.
So are you ready to surround yourself with success? Because you're in the right place. Welcome to the city.
When I was in corporate, I remember it was the first time I'd heard of the whole elevator pitch. And I remember because I was part of a sales organization, but I wasn't a salesperson. So I remember the marketing person kind of coming and doing this big kind of spiel for us. And I was then responsible for helping them with this thing called an elevator pitch. I'm like, I'm sorry, can we back the truck up a few steps? Pardon? And the way that they had positioned it was literally, if you are stuck in an elevator with somebody and you have to and they turn to you and say, what do? You need to be able to say it in a very concise, very short span of time. And I remember thinking the whole thing sounded very odd to me. Like I was thinking, well, why are you stuck in an elevator I was very logical, right? Like, why are you stuck in an elevator with somebody? Are we kidding? Are you talking, like, are you physically stuck and you're like, are you going to the top floor? Like, I was so confused. And then when I became an entrepreneur, one of the first things at a networking event was, we need to talk about your elevator pitch. And I'm like, hey, I know what that is.
Exactly. Well, it's, I think when people first phrased it, I don't really know where it came from, who started it, but I think it was back then it was good. It was literally you told people what you did, which was a normal thing, right? And then some weird stuff happened, and then people were like saying things that nobody knew what the heck they were doing, because that's this weird training that came out and people were actually listening to. I don't even know where it started, but it's just very, like, what do you do? Well, I help people achieve freedom. What? So, and it was a formula that people taught. I mean, I still see it in a lot of business training today, and it's very airy-fairy, and like, you can't really understand what somebody's doing because somehow it's almost like elitist to me. It's almost like, well, I'm so far above you that I'm going to give you words and concepts that you have no idea what I'm talking about.
But what it's going to do is going to make you ask more questions.
Right. No,
but it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. People ask questions when they're interested, right? And so what happens when people use phrases that they can't really understand is they shut down because they don't want to look stupid. That's your brain. It's telling you to protect itself, right? So it's shutting down and you're just going to say, oh, and that's it.
Right.
And you're not going to ask any more questions. So I think, so for those of you who've been taught this old school elevator pitch, don't do it. Is that clear enough? Don't do it. Unless so we go back to the same thing we talked about in networking a while back, which was, I can't help you and I can't use your services if I don't know what you do.
I can't refer you to somebody if I don't understand. And somehow I think we get lost sometimes in industry lingo.
Yes.
Because we are in that industry. And I remember you and I having this conversation once, and that really made sense to me was, yes, but everybody in my world says this, looks through that. This is the stuff that's coming into my feed. This is the language that you're using. Yeah. And you're like, that's great. You're not looking for people who live in your world.
That's true. You're not, right?
Right. That. Yeah. So if nobody understands your industry lingo and no one has a clue what you do, confused people are literally going to run away from you. They're not going to want to try to refer you. But if they understand what you do, they will then go, oh, I know, I understand. Now you're going to ask more questions of the who do you help? What kind of clients do you use? Where are you located? Whatever the case may be.
Right.
I know somebody, or even whatever the case may be, the conversation can continue to use something to respond to.
Exactly. So that allows somebody who's interested. If they're not interested in what you do, it's okay too. They'll just say, oh, that's cool. And that's it. And leave it at that. But at least they know. Right. And so I think,
right.
there was this thought that, oh, if you don't divulge everything, people will be so interested that they'll ask you these questions. No, they won't. They won't. They won't ask you anything. Stop talking to yourself. Right? So what do I do? I'm a business strategist, which means I take your ideas and bring it to a reality by a step-by-step roadmap. I tell you how to do it. That's what I do. If somebody's interested in that, wow, how do you do it? They'll ask me the question. If they're like, oh, I don't have any ideas, I don't need you, cool. Right? But tell them, what do you do, Stacey?
I'm a producer. I take your idea and I make it a reality by implementing all of the strategies that you already have, and you don't have to worry about all the tech. I take care of all that for you.
There you go. So, it's really straightforward in what everyone does if you just say it, right? If you're a doctor, you can say it, but you can say what specialties, not just I'm a doctor. You can say I'm a doctor and I specialize in X, right? And that's it. Like, you want to tell people what you do. Why does that become a bad thing? It's a better sales pitch than being very vague. And I don't know if I'm going to get pushback on this by somebody, but absolutely, I believe 100% what I'm saying, that unless you tell people what you do, they're not going to remember you and they're not going to be interested.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's been really interesting from the vagueness. I think we've gone through a phase, and I'm hoping that the phase is done. The vagueness around what you do. And I remember, I think I was at a networking event or something, and I was like, what do you do? And they went through this kind of verbiage that I went, hey, I could say the same thing. And they're like, what? And I said, oh, well, I actually help people with their LinkedIn profiles, but actually the way that you worded it, I could say the same thing. And their industry was like the polar opposite of mine. They weren't anywhere in the social media marketing realm or the tech realm. I think they were in holistic services or something along those lines. And it was really interesting. And they're like, oh my God. And I wasn't at all talking about the pitch. I just thought it was fascinating that the words that they were using were so, transferable to literally any industry. Right. And they started going, oh, okay. And like I said, I was just fascinated by the concept, but they're like, I think I need to change what I'm doing. So I find coaches aren't really clear on what they do.
Coaches are the worst culprits, I think. So those of you who are with On Point, listen carefully. This messaging is part of the Coach Level 1 training that is available in the On Point portal. So if those of you who haven't started, we have a section on messaging, and this is what it is, the elevator pitch. And I think coaches are notoriously bad at it because they will say, I'm a coach. I'm a business coach. What does that mean exactly? I'm a business coach too, but I don't do every type of business strategy or every type of business problem there is. I'm not saying I can't, I'm saying I don't. And what you want to do is put out your specialty. So if you're a business coach that specifically targets social media, I'm a business coach that only deals with operations. I'm a business coach that works with internal HR departments. What is it that you work with? Because if you just say you're a generalist, people don't hire you. They don't hire you.
I mean, look at the switch literally almost instantly from when I went through 1,000 titles, and I don't believe you need to throw titles in your elevator pitch, but I do have a question for you in regards to that word. So I used to call myself a social media strategist way back a million years ago, and I became this generalist. But I realized two things. Number one, once I specialized, and I called myself, then I specialized in LinkedIn on your advice, and it switched immediately. But I also stopped calling myself a strategist because I also realized very quickly the difference between a strategist like yourself, who actually is coming up with and that strategic plan to make things happen and taking your idea into a reality, versus someone like me, who what I wanted to do was kind of take that. So when somebody said, well, will you help build me a strategy? Well, no, but I'm going to help you with how to use this platform and how to implement. So when somebody would come to me and say, I'm a marketing strategist, I'm like, you're not ready for me. So I really started to define who I am and where I fit into people's worlds. in regards. So if you didn't have a business strategy, if you didn't have a marketing strategy, if you had no idea what you were doing, then I said, you need to have these conversations with people first.
Yeah.
Right. But it led to conversations. It led to questions. But there is a lot of people out there who push back on the word pitch.
Right.
So you're calling this the new elevator pitch.
Right.
Why are you using that terminology versus others? And where's the distinction?
And so what's the problem with the word pitch? Is everybody afraid, running for the hills? They're worried about the word pitch. We'll be more worried about what you're saying than the word pitch. So here, I'm blunt, guys. So sorry if you don't like it. But I wouldn't worry about a word, right? A word is a word. For me, if somebody argues back with me and says, well, I don't like calling it a pitch, then don't call it a pitch. It doesn't matter to me, but don't use it as a way to not do your work or not do your homework, right? Pitch is not a bad word to me. A pitch is basically you're telling somebody what you're doing. Doesn't have anything to do with sales. You're pitching who you are. It's just a terminology. You can use any word you want. Anything you want. It doesn't matter.
And this is a big struggle for some. So just to pop up some of the comments that are happening right now. So Teresa is saying that this is her biggest struggle, is really, compacting and solidifying. Right. And then she's saying she gets really wordy. So I think that's trying to actually say it in a concise way. And so Elizabeth is also on saying this is one of her biggest struggles. So it's definitely a piece I think that people get very lost in.
I think, guys, I think you get lost because you've been giving so many mixed messages in the last little while. Again, it's because people are thinking that you have to somehow sell yourself. I never go anywhere thinking I'm going to sell myself. I just tell people what I do. So as long as you should be going into an elevator or into a networking event, simply allowing people to know what you do. The more I just say what I do, the more people want to work with me. They know I'm not pitching them, right? They know I'm not pitching. So if you just say, I work with individuals, or I work with entrepreneurs, or I work with families, right? So you want to tell them who you work with. I work with whoever. So they know that, oh, okay, she would work with me, right? And so that they, you talk about what you do. So I work with families so that they can experience happiness and joy by giving them strategies to make them feel like more of a close-knit family. I don't know. I'm not a relationship person, but what I'm trying to tell you is be very specific. This is what you do. So if you're a life coach, this is what I would say. Hi, I'm Sally. I'm a life coach. I actually work with individuals to take away their stress because I've come up with some stress management steps and activities and tools that I know work for them. So they can spend their time being happy and joyful, whatever you want to say. But like what I'm telling you is I'm a life coach, but I specialize in stress management, right? Right. Now, this is where
you work with individuals. So I know that if I know somebody who's XYZ, then I go, oh, I met this girl at an event or whatever. She specializes in this and this, exactly what you're going through. I'll send you a referral because I understand what you do. I find when people get too vague, I'm like,
and so sometimes, I also, sorry, my glasses just dropped.
That's okay. You're allowed to drop things, but just not down the elevator shaft.
No. So sometimes, I'll get a pushback from you guys. And listen, I used to do it too, because I would say, well, I can do everything. Business coach, I can do everything. Life coach, I can do everything, right? I know you're thinking that. And I'm sure you can do everything. Stacy can do any social media. She doesn't have to say LinkedIn. She literally can do any one. But then it gets a wash, right? Because then people automatically think, well, they can't be that good if they do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. They want somebody that says, this is what I do, right? Yeah. I used to do a lot of different coaching, but the truth is every time I go back to it, I'm just a strategist. That's all I do. And when people have a built business that they already, they know, and they just want to keep rolling, they just want to coach, that's not me. Because my brain will only go, what are you going to do next? Where should we go? How can we build this? Because that's how my brain works.
Right.
So you have to let go of the stuff like Stacy did too. She let go of the stuff that she just didn't want to do, right? She didn't want to do. So you have to say to yourself, what is it that I truly do? Easiest way to figure that out is look at what you do. Look at the people you've worked with. There is a theme there.
Exactly. But I do have to relate this back to LinkedIn a little bit, because the LinkedIn headline only allows you a certain amount of characters. So it's interesting when I work from that perspective and I start to do the headline and people get really wordy. And I'm like, well, that's too many words. You can't use that many words. People need to understand who you are, what you do, and who you help. It's really simple and concise. Little bit different from the elevator pitch in regards to what you're going to say.
Right.
But if you can kind of say it in a succinct way, same concept. People go, well, I help people, la, 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 la. And all of a sudden I relate it back. Like, saying it, somebody might be nice to physically, go, okay, well, they're a nice person. Maybe I'll ask some more questions. But if they're searching for you on any of your social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever, your bio, and they look at it and they're going to go to the next person because they have no idea how it relates to them.
Right. So you guys want me to give you a little hack, make it a little easier for you?
Always.
So
I'll answer on behalf of everybody. Yes.
So we said, you just have to say who you are, and you guys are still skittish, even though I said like 3 words and you guys are still going, oh, I can't say that. So here's one that sounds like conversation. Somebody says to you,
oh, I love this one.
So what do you do?
I was going to bring it up earlier, but I just,
So this is what I tell most of my clients. All you have to answer is, so when you have an idea and you don't really know how to bring it to reality, or you don't really know what to do with it, and they'll go, yes. And you'll go, I'm the person that brings it to reality. I tell you what to do. So that person. So when you feel stressed out and you don't know what to do because you've read a lot of books, but you can't figure it out. Yes. I'm the one that can teach you in 30 days how to take the stress out of your life.
I love the question, like almost answering a question with a question, because it just makes it so clear.
Does everyone get that? Did that make that easier for everyone?
When you want to do something and the tech gets in your way, well, I take care of the tech so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. And they're like, oh, like number one, it relates it back to exactly who they are and what their problem is. But number 2, it makes it really clear. So
guys, that is like, after years and years and years of teaching people elevator pitch and people were still scared, I just went back to what I'd say. And I usually use the because, again, let's talk to you, Teresa. It doesn't sound pitchy, right? It doesn't sound like you're selling them anything. You're going, hey, to explain it easier. So, right? Can you think you could use that? Would that one work for everybody? I think it's the easiest thing you can possibly do. So
start with the,
it's the same thing as, remember, for those of you guys who are hanging around my speaking stuff. And remember, I taught you those magic words, in my opinion. This is the, in my opinion, right? This is the same type of strategy, using it as an elevator pitch. So or in my opinion, same kind of thing. It's the same. It's a little bit of a get out of jail free card for those of you that want to take the little hack version, which is the best version to always use.
Exactly. So Teresa's just saying yes, which is great. Excellent. And this person just saying works well. So just very clear. Just get that going. Yeah.
So why don't you guys give us some of yours? Anyone want to step up to the board?
But I also think I just need to reiterate that if you are a thing, so if you are a life coach, then tell people you are a life coach. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are a strategist, say you're a strategist. If you're an accountant, say you're an accountant. We know what those things are. And if you're a business coach, you can say that. You can say, I'm a business coach that specializes in.
If you say, I help women live their best lives, what? Are you a coach? Are you a yoga instructor? Like, what do you do?
Are you a nutritionist? Are you I could use that one.
Yeah.
if I specialized in with women clients, I could use that.
And I hear that all the time, and I know the training programs that teach it. So I know, I'm not going to out them, but I do know them. And you got to understand, guys, that when you say that, I would say 99% of the people shut down.
Yeah.
It's way too vague for anyone to understand. And then they just feel stupid. And like, really, is your goal to make people feel uncomfortable? Because that's what you're making them feel. So,
well, and I think unfortunately with the programs that do teach that is that they feel it. It's like, okay, I'm using, they teach it in a way that they feel like it's the right thing to do. Right. Absolutely. They're like, I'm using the words of my ideal client. That's usually the word, the sort of training that they go down. And then the phone rings and then you just completely, no, I'm kidding.
Did you guys notice the phone always rings? My phone never rings.
At this point that you're training for, at 12 o'clock, but anyway.
My phone never rings because people know that I don't answer it. So
I remember I was literally one day, I was doing a recording. My phone hadn't rang in 3 days. Ever. I literally pressed that record button and my phone rings. I'm like, did you know? But anyway, so you're talking whatever. So they get trained on all this stuff and they kind of write it out. But then when they try it on, so they go to a networking event, and I remember being at this one and going around the room. That's the big one, right? Go around the room and tell people what you do or whatever. So they do this, on the fly, scripted, well documented, well written out, 3-phrase, whatever, and blank expressions.
Right.
Blank. And then you get the person who stands up and says, you know what? I'm an accountant for female entrepreneurs who run a small business. And the people all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know what? I have a friend who needs an accountant. Yes, I have that. And I always felt bad for the person. I'm like, I'm sorry, but we just don't know what you do.
I always get, whenever I say it at any of the events, somebody always comes up to me. They go, I have a really great idea and I didn't know if I could actually make it work. Can I talk to you about it? So, that to me is like perfect. Okay, I'll talk to you. That's who I'm interested in. So, if I just said I'm a business coach, that person would have never come up to me because they don't know really what I do. There's a million business coaches out there. You have to pick something you specialize in. You can do more. Don't get me wrong. You can do more and you can do more for your existing client base, but you need to start somewhere, right?
So this is Teresa's. Yeah. So Teresa's saying, do you know anyone who struggles to find balance between the work-life balance? I teach you strategies to eliminate stress, anxiety, and to put the strategies in place to give you peace in life.
Beautiful. Teresa, that's all you need. That's perfect. It's perfect. I know exactly what you do. So here's the thing, guys. If you say what you do and you truly mean it and you feel it, there's no memorization because you actually know what you do. It's not
that's the irony. That is the fascinating irony that if you don't know what you do and you're using prescripted or memorized terms, you actually don't know what you do.
You don't know what you do.
And all of a sudden and I've had people try to explain themselves and then they get mixed up in the words and then they say, hang on, let me try again. And you're sitting there looking at them going,
exactly.
What?
Exactly. Like
I may not say the same thing every time, but I know it's not prescriptive.
I used to have clients and they would, a long time ago, and they would go to networking events and they'd be nervous wrecks because they would be practicing their elevator pitch. And like, it would before, obviously I talked to them about it, but I was like, what? Like, you're nervous about like talking to people because you don't know what to tell them you do?
I think this
is a much bigger problem in life if you can't say what you do. Like, I'd rather you just say, I'm a life coach and stop talking than go and talk about gobbledygook stuff, right? Like, so just understand, like, this isn't a big deal. Like, think about if you have your kid and somebody asks him, what does your mom do? If he doesn't know what you do, if he can't articulate what you do in the basic terms, right?
Depending on their age.
Yeah, like just basic. Oh, she's, she does coaching. She owns a yoga studio. She's an accountant.
I don't know. She goes online a lot.
Yeah. If they don't know if they can't say the basic, then you really haven't put your message out there and you're not living it, because maybe you're struggling with what you really want to do, right? So maybe
I think it's interesting when people bring up their phones. They literally go to do their elevator pitch. They're like, hang on one sec. And then they go to read it. And you're sitting there going, huh?
Isn't that, if you're one, and okay, so we're going to get pushback, Stacey, because people are going to say, but I blank out. Okay, so again, let's go back to the one word. I'm an accountant. Leave it at that. That's better than anything else you could have said. If you go blank, I think you can probably at least remember one word.
I'm a life coach. And I think there's a lot of, I don't want to get into too many multi-level marketing company strategies, but they're taught not to say the name of the company that they represent.
Right.
And I think that really does service.
So wrong. So if there's an MLM person there, you come to me because I need to set you straight. Because the truth is, if you tell me that you're with an MLM, and the first question I'm going to say is, "Oh, cool. What kind of products do they sell?"
Exactly.
Because I'm interested. Don't try to tell me you're going to give me the benefit without telling me who you are, because I always shut people down. I always go, no, the company, please. What's the company?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be misled. And I've worked with a lot of MLM people, and you're right, Stacey. It's almost like cultish what they're supposed to say, because they have to stay with the script. Yeah, I don't like that stuff. I don't like scripts very much.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, again, it just leads to more confusion. It leads to more people just kind of pulling back. And I physically have seen it, because I've seen the interaction where somebody's sort of giving them sort of that, I don't know what words to use, fluffy language.
Yeah.
And people are asking them direct questions. What type of company is it? Is it supplements? Is it skincare? Is it this? Is it that? Yeah. And they continue to talk in their fluffy language. And people, I've seen it literally pull back, and then they go to talk. Oh, I see somebody on the other side of the room I need to connect with. Yeah. And then they wonder why no one's asking them or interested in their products.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to take out a piece of paper and pencil, write down what you do. And like, if you still have 40,000 things you're writing down, write them all down. Write them all down, and then keep paring down until you actually can say out loud what you do in one sentence, in one breath, and you're not stressed, you're not sweating, you're not running the other way, right?
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Clear. So I love so two things that I've learned today. Number one is you can start it with a question. You know someone, someone who struggles with this. I do this, or I'm a blank. I do take people from here to here.
That's it.
So really super simple.
Straightforward, guys. Really simple. I don't want you. This is the last thing you should stress about. I mean, the truth is, this is what you do. The whole, the rest of it, how you get people to whatever you're doing, whatever business you own, that is where you should be spending your time, not about, what you do on a small little minuscule piece. If that's what's holding you back, I just gave you the get out of jail free cards again on this one. So you need to stop and just not worry about it anymore. Ask the question. If so, what do you do? Comes back to, so when, if you have an idea, when you feel stressed. If you use that question, it gets you out again. So it's really fairly simple. What I'd prefer you to do, again, is spend your time on what you do for people, how you help them, how you run a business, how you run an organization, the pieces that are important. In corporate, very few people have this problem because they just use their titles, right? They just say, I'm a senior executive, or I'm a senior vice president. Again, a little vague, but at least they have something to fall back on. So why is it that they can say senior vice president, but you can't say I'm an accountant?
Or a life coach, or a business coach, or a specialist or whatever terminology and titles. And then I find for XYZ company. So again, in corporate, there was a lot of assumptions. So we made a lot of assumptions back in our day that people knew what our company did.
Yeah.
But they needed to understand that not everybody knows the company. So what they would say was, I'm an account executive with XYZ company who produces this type of product. So that was a product-based elevator pitch. But it was interesting back in that days, they had, okay, well, if you're going to the third floor, like they really broke this down, right? You went to the third floor, this is what you would say. If you're going to the 10th floor, you might have 10 seconds more to be able to explain that. But it was really exactly what you said. I'm a this at this company that produces this.
And so I'm going to push back on that 10th floor thing for.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Like, so here's the thing. Nobody wants to hear you talk all that time. If they're interested in you, they're going to ask you a question. So stop with the, I must keep talking because I have this dead air space and I can utilize it to make a sale, or I can utilize it to just stop talking and just tell them what you do, and then allow them to ask a question if they're interested. If they don't ask a question, they're not interested.
That's what I found so fascinating when they were talking about the third floor versus 10th floor. And I really felt that was doing the person you're talking to a disservice, because what if they, so I got into logical mode. Well, what if they get to the 10th floor and then they're getting off? So now they're late to their appointment, and you've just taken up the entire time in the elevator.
Because you won't
give them the opportunity to say, can I have your business card?
Yeah. So
they thought I was funny. So this is another one. This is Linda, as I can see from the Facebook feed. So Linda, you need to click the little StreamYard link to show your name. But anyway, so this is her elevator pitch. So you know how people talk themselves out of the things they want to do because they are afraid, overwhelmed, or don't feel that they have the confidence to do it. I help them figure out how to push through the fears and meet their goals using spiritual and practical coaching practices.
Perfect. You know what I like about that?
But yeah.
What I like about it is the use of spiritual practices. So there's no surprise. Right. Because if there is something that you're very niched at, or niched, wherever you're from, then you need to spell it out. So if you're a Christian coach or spiritual coach, say it. Because some people don't want to work with you, and then some people want to work with you because they feel like that. So absolutely, if you feel like that it does make a distinction on how you would work with them, right? So don't feel obligated to, right? But if you feel like it would make a difference, then say it out loud. So absolutely, Linda, so again, when you wrote it, which means that you have a lot more words than you would not normally say if you were talking. So what I would say to you is, it's great, but now don't look at it and say it to somebody. Or actually don't look at it and record yourself, because then you can see which words you actually took out and see, where you're going to be, where that will tell you where your focus really is. So you might have just said, I work with people who are overwhelmed. Right. And then you'll go, oh, okay, that's my hook. That's my keyword. That's what I default to. It comes naturally. This isn't a science thing. It's just what you say. If you start recording yourself, you'd be amazed.
Yeah. And listen to it. Like, don't just record it, but listen to the recording.
Exactly.
That's the key, because you're going to go, oh, actually, and think of, like, take the hat off that you know exactly what you do. So when you hear it back, is it clear? Put yourself in the brain of your client. Would that make sense to them? Are those, so again, if I don't necessarily understand what spiritual practices are, then I'm not your ideal client, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there's also that distinction as well.
Yeah. And yeah, you might not want me as a client, and I might not want you as a coach. Right.
And that's okay. And I think that's the big thing is you don't have to appeal to the masses because the masses are not who you want to be working with. You want to attract the people who go, oh my goodness, that does make sense. So I think there's also just to have people understand that piece as well, because I know when I've helped people craft different things in the past, I'll go, well, I don't understand that, but that's okay.
Right.
Because I'm not your client.
Right.
So yes, you need to make it clear, but there doesn't, and without some of the industry lingo and stuff, but you don't necessarily have to make it clear for absolutely everybody.
Right. Right. And I mean, we talked about this last week, I think, wasn't it, Stacey, when we read, or the week before we read something that on one of the blogs or whatever, somebody was talking about what they did, their company, and they said in simple terms, right? And we still didn't understand what they were talking about.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They didn't want us.
When they were talking in simple terms, I do this, and it's like, okay, if that's in simple terms,
yeah,
I don't understand the lingo. And that's okay. There was a lot of people who were commenting, I think, that were completely in understanding. Same thing when I've talked to different people in different industries, where they're like, well, anybody in this industry who I would want to work with, because I've worked with somehow, I don't know how, but I end up working with a lot of engineers.
Right.
So when engineers, and they're talking about the engineering world, they're like, well, anybody who would either want to hire me or I would want to work with would understand this word. So sometimes there is a place for that industry lingo, but in general terms, and again, if you can say, but in simple terms, I do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got any questions for us, guys? Anything that's still, I think we've been pretty clear on our take on the elevator pitch. Again, I have no problem with the word. If you want to change it, go ahead. Right. I had the same problem when in part of my mastermind, I have something called the loser wall, and people took offense to the word loser, and I have it as a term of endearment. So again, don't necessarily judge somebody by the word. You just need to know, like, if it's not comfortable for you, don't use it. Right.
Exactly. I feel like I need to have a superhero name or something and call it, I'm going to be like the Implementor. Have a little cape.
Go. See?
But it's simple. Yes. So you're right. Make it clear. Make it clear. Just make it clear.
Yeah. So
you are welcome. Teresa's saying thank you. So I'm saying you're welcome. I forgot to tell you what I was saying you're welcome to.
That's okay, because she knows I don't have my glasses on again. I never have my glasses on.
That's okay.
So just so it's not that I like the look of glasses. I actually like people in glasses. I like myself in glasses. I just I'm very focused when I'm on video. And because I have Stacey producing everything, I don't have to read the comments because she does them. So I just like to have no distractions. I don't really see anything but Stacey's picture, and that's really who I'm talking to. And so, but again, you have to know your personality, right? And it's that, as you guys can probably tell, I just like things straight, simple, straightforward in everything. So I just got off a call with somebody who, this morning, who said, I'm trying to describe you to people, and he goes, what all I can come up with is you're real. You're exactly the same person every time. It doesn't matter if you're on, a stage, you're on a summit, you're talking to me one-on-one, you're exactly the same. And that's because I'm not scripting anything. Right.
And that's a huge compliment, because again, we've had this conversation when we were doing training on how to go live, and maybe another one we'll do when it comes to video. This is what I love about this concept, is that you can't hide.
No.
You can hide in audio, you can hide in blogs, you can hide even on stage. You can kind of put on that persona, but as soon as you get off stage and you talk to them and they're like, oh my goodness, I really thought you were a nice person, or wow, you're so different, or I really thought I wanted to work with you because the energy you brought, but now I see that you're completely different. So the fact that he said that you're real, and you are, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
This is the way you are on camera, and I know how you are off camera. So very much so.
So I think that's the goal for you. I mean, the truth is your life's a heck of a lot easier when you're not trying to fake it and put something up that you're not, or when you're trying to memorize your elevator pitch. Like, it's just.
And please don't try to read it off your phone. Don't, sit there and, try to hang on 1 second and put your phone like right out of camera reach and, all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't work because people know that you're scripting something. And we've talked about scripting a lot when it comes to planning, when we talked about podcasting, we talked about LinkedIn, we've talked about different topics. Mm-hmm. And when you're scripting, people know it's a script.
Yeah.
And so it's not authentic.
So for those of you who are in the coaching module on Point this week, we talked about, as I said, about messaging, but, we're talking about our next session tomorrow is about discovery calls. And I've given you a lot of scripts in terms of ideas. So just like I told you how to use this hack, I tell you how to use hacks in general for discovery calls. So theoretically they're scripts, but they're not. It's just an idea or an essence of where the path leads. And remember, that's what I do. So I'm telling you how to get through the path, how to get through the roadmap of your call. But I'm also telling you, to put it in your own words and tell it exactly what it is, as opposed to reading off a script. Everyone can tell. So don't fool yourself. I don't care how good you are, unless you're a really good actor, then you should just go into acting, because I'm not. I'm a terrible actor.
But I think the other piece is, like I found in the beginning, just to bring it back to the elevator pitch again, in that sort of round table concept. So you go to an event and everyone's okay, well, everyone's now going to go around the table and tell you what you do. So there's two types of people. If you'll notice when it goes around, there's two types of people. There's one that's really listening to each person. They might be making notes.
Yes.
Jane does insurance, or, whatever the case may be. There's people who are really focused on what people are saying, which is amazing. Then you have the people who are completely tuned out.
Yes.
Of what other people are saying, and they're thinking so hard because they're so nervous of what they're going to say that they're not even listening to everybody else. So number one, you're expecting everyone to listen to you, and you're not listening to them. But number two, people can tell.
They can tell. That's the worst, right? When you see people doing that, I feel so bad for them, because they were probably a nervous wreck for 3 days before the event, because they knew they'd have to stand up for 10 seconds.
Right.
And say something. So you guys need to get over that, right?
But I think you're missing out on opportunities of other people who might be in the room, whether it's virtual or real. You're missing out on the opportunity that you've just found out that Faye is a strategist. So it's like, oh, I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't, if I was just sitting there focused on what I was going to say. But when it comes to your turn and you've been focusing on everybody else, and you just stand up and you tell people how you act, what you actually do, they're more likely to listen as well, because they know you've been listening to them.
Yeah. And the worst thing is when, somebody comes up to you at the same table an hour later and asks, what do you do? You're like, were you not at the table?
You weren't listening. What were you doing during that time? Yeah, I hear you.
Thanks for joining us in the city for this episode of Master Talk.
If you're ready to make a lasting impression on a global scale, you can learn more at joingia.com. That's JOINGIA.com.
So go there now, because the world is waiting for you.